Super Metroid is the third installment in the Metroid series. It follows the events of Metroid 2, which I never played mainly because of how ugly it looked. Instead, I steered more toward playing AM2R and the 3DS remake. But nevertheless, Super Metroid was developed and published by Nintendo for the Super Nintendo in 1994. At the time of the release, it was the largest video game on the Super Nintendo relative to cartridge size. The plot is simple. Real popular two-line quote comes up and the events of the previous games get summarized. Samus travels back to the research station at which she left in charge of the baby Metroid and finds out the place was attacked and wrecked. We traverse through each room in the lab and coming to the last one we see the baby Metroid to when we get closer, a pair of eyes are the only thing that light up the room. This is where the enemy is made clear to us. Here is Samus's nemesis, Ridley. He snatches the mini Metroid and escapes, leaving Samus at now the self-destructing lab. Samus escapes and flies away on over to planet Zebes, following Ridley in order to try and retrieve the baby. Super Metroid is a 2D side-scrolling platformer which revolves mainly around exploration and action. This game takes place upon a large world with many environments affixed to itself. Super Metroid's progression system is how the exploration is implemented. Almost every area is chock full of hidden items. Certain items found are used to reach previously inaccessible areas. New ideas were introduced into the series through Super Metroid. Examples of this are the inventory screen, ability to fire in all directions, an item collection rate, and the map. Neither Metroid 1 nor Metroid 2 had in-game maps included. You'd often find yourself either drawing your own map or having to memorize the area, which with games like this on limited hardware hardly had any distinct things on the map as an indication of location. Super Metroid, however, differs hugely in comparison, as after every few rooms the environment is always changing. On topic of the map, areas that you have covered appear pink, and areas that remain undiscovered will appear blue. There are also symbols that show on the map as to specify what that particular thing is. The inventory in Super Metroid has a very easy to understand interface. It gives the amount of energy, beams, suits, miscellaneous, and boots. The items you have equipped will light up in an orange flash, and the items deactivated appear grey and plain. The attention to detail in Super Metroid is remarkable. Bugs scatter when you go close by, Samus's visor lights up in dark areas, which whilst in light areas it does not. Without high jump, if you have the speed booster equipped, your jump reduces in height. Mother Brain's old capsule is still present and still broken. And when Samus breathes underwater, little bubbles can be spotted around her helmet as well as a sound can be heard to give an indication of her breathing. The graphics in Super Metroid are perfect for what they do and how they look. The game at the same time is both dark yet colourful, arguably making Super Metroid the scariest and most atmosphere-heavy Metroid game in the franchise. First arrived on planet Zebes, the area is dark, raining and empty. We are aware that we're being watched as there are cameras dotted around the facility. After navigating through Zebes, Samus gets stronger and stronger, and once the first boss is beaten, we revisit Criteria again and the rain has stopped and encouraging music is now displayed as opposed to simple ambience like before. Kenji Yamamoto is well known for making music in the Metroid series. He composed the soundtrack for Super Metroid. The music in SM is some of the best musical pieces in Metroid history. It fits the game flawlessly and really matches the ambient mood which is presented. The Norfair music has been done to death due to its appearances in most Metroid games. But Super Metroid really created the best music possible for that area. It truly feels like a march in a fire environment which leads to an inevitable boss battle with Ridley. The gameplay in Super Metroid could not get any more satisfying. Having to master an uncomfortable control scheme is very rewarding. The mechanics included throughout the game are fun to learn and there are no tutorials in Super Metroid, meaning you have to find out everything for yourself. The closest thing you get to a tutorial is the Etacoons showing you how to wall jump. It still isn't fully explained on what has to be done, so you are still responsible for making your way up to the top. The wall jump mechanic is used quite frequently, as well as especially in speedruns, as it is the easiest game mechanic present in SM when it comes to sequence breaking. When it comes to beating the game, there are 3 endings based on how quickly you beat it, and it also gives the amount of collectibles collected at the end just to give an indication of how much left there is still needing to be collected. Each item in Super Metroid is unique and has its own ability. Even the beams, which could have just gotten stronger with each upgrade, instead give a distinct colour and different effect. Adding all beams together make it the most powerful, and it puts all abilities together. The first item we achieve in Super Metroid is the Morph Ball. The Morph Ball allows us to get through short spaces, and once we get bombs, going into Morph Ball form allows us to place them. Next is of course bombs. Bombs are used to blow up bombable areas. You can place 3 at a time, and this, like most power-ups, can cause sequence breaking. With the bombs we can use them to bomb jump. High jump allows us to jump higher, and space jump allows us to constantly regain height by tapping the jump button just after reaching the height of our jump. There are 2 suits in Super Metroid which together allow us to survive in heated rooms, move freely in water, and also reduce damage. Grapple Beam allows us to swing across from grapple blocks, etc, etc. The point is there are so many items in Super Metroid, and every item in some way allows us to progress. That is even the case with the beams, whether in order to progress we have to hit a switch on the other side of a wall, or kill one of the many bosses in the game. In regard to the bosses, Super Metroid has some amazing ones. There are mini-bosses like Crocomire, Spore Spawn and Botwoon, which are fun fights, but it gets far more entertaining when battling against the real bosses like Kraid, Phantoon, Ridley and Dragon. All bosses have their own patterns and can be beaten rather quickly once you either know the pattern or find the cheap way to finish off the enemy. Fighting the bosses as the game intends is nothing short of badass. The final fight against Mother Brain is still incredible and holds up as one of the most surprising events in the game. As someone who used to speedrun Super Metroid with both GameCube and SNES controllers, I can confirm that whilst the controls aren't great, they're still manageable and are something that with time feel better and far more rewarding to control than in any other Metroid game. Playing with the default control settings, you'll most likely find yourself using a claw grip if you're trying to play fast pace. So thankfully the control system can be altered before loading into a game. SM is the only Metroid game with a sprint button. When researching this topic, I was surprised when seeing how many people were unaware of the sprint mechanic. Whilst no run button was introduced in Metroid 1 or 2, the speed booster doesn't work without the sprint button, and the game is a whole lot slower. If you get bored of the basic game, there is other things you can do, as there are mods and randomizers for this game which spice it up a little, making it more interesting for returning players or people bored of beating the game non-stop. The randomizers have custom music, sprites and even introduce visual changes. Not only is there a Super Metroid randomizer, but there is also a connected world randomizer which has a Link to the Past and Super Metroid crossed together. This is actually 1, really clever, and 2, put together brilliantly. Back when the game came out in 1994, no one would have thought it possible to cross 2 games which were so different together, if at all. In conclusion, I rate Super Metroid a 10 out of 10, and yes, it is still a critically acclaimed masterpiece.